Right. Shalom, Israel. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the Sabbath service. I'll say Majim, which means to stand. Ma Yisrael, which means to Israel. On Yom HaKadosh, which means face the east. We'll start off with the Lord's Prayer. In the Hebrew. Abinah, Shabbat Shemar, Badah, Hayah, Shemka, Yahweh, Malachaka, Taba'ah, Ratasaka, Hayah, Aisha, Bayrataza, Kawa, Hayah, Mashamai, Matanana, Kam, Kaw, Yuwan, Wasalak now, Kabawat now, Kasalak now, Kabawat yet now, Wala'ah, Tabayah now, Tabayah, War, Haushana, Mayam, Ra, Hayat, Laka, Amalakwa, Wahala, Watapori, Ma'ai, Walayam. Amen. It's the Lord's Prayer in English. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Yahweh, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. As it is in heaven, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever so be. Hakak power in Hebrew. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, Babakashah, Nathan Hakak, Hakak, Larapah. Kalmakala, Kal Madawa, Akak, Latahor, Matazori, Akak, Lahakayam, Matayam, Akak, Al Rakakawa, Hatamaala, Gorish, Shim Yahushai, and what Alman. It's a cock power in the Hebrew, in the English, like, Lord, in the name of Yahushua, please give us the power to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. The power to cleanse the lepers, the power to raise the dead, the power against unclean spirits, to cast them out. In the name of Yahushua, so be it. This is blessed Israel in the Hebrew. Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, Rakmanam, by Ashram, by Abaya, Sapari, Rakma'ah, by Hashem Yahushua, and what Alman. This blessed Israel in the English. Lord, in the name of Yahushua, bless us, and Israel, and the school, bless, heal, shield, protect. In the name of Yahushua, thank you, so be it. This is Psalms 121 in Hebrew. Asha'ah, Ayan, Al-Hahari, Mahayan, Yala'ah, Azari, Ma'ayin, Yahweh, Aisha, Shamayam, Warataza, Aliyatan, Lamawat, Regalika, Aliyanwam, Shamarka, Anala'a, Yanawam, Wala'a, Yayishan, Shawamor, Yashurala, Yahweh, Shamarka, Yahweh, Tazaka, Al-Yah, Yamyaka, Yawamam, Hashamash, La'a, Yakaka, Wairak, Malayala, Yahweh, Yashamar, Kalrad, Yashamar, Athnapashka, Yahweh, Yashamar, Tazaatka, Wabawaaka, Mayatha, Wa'ayatalam. Psalms 121 in the English. I will lift up my eyes into the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from Yahweh, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall not slumber nor sleep. Yahweh is thy keeper. Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. Thou shalt preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. Yahweh shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. So be it. This is Psalm 83 in the Hebrew. Alahai, Damayalaka, Al-Tatharash, Wa'al-Tashakwat, All, Hayahana, Awadik, Yahamawan, Yawan, it's like Ra'ash, Al-Amai, Ya'ira Yamwa, Sawada, Wayata, Ya'aitagawa, Al-Tazawandika, Amara, Lakawa, Wanakakida, Magaya, Wala Aya, Sham Yasharala, Iwa, Kaya, Nawa Aitadawa, Lava, Yakalu, Yakarafa, Ahahalia, Adawam, Wayashima, Alayam, Mawa'aba, Mahagari, Gabal, Waimawan, Waimalak, Palashat, Anyashabi, Tazawar, Hamashawar, Nalawa, Imam, Ayawa, Sarawa, Nabanyalawa, Salah, Aishalaham, Kamadi, Kasaya, Tama'a, Kayab, Banakal, Koyashma, Nashamadi, Bayat, Ayawa, Daman, Ladamad, Shayatamu, Nada, Yamawa, Kayarwa, Wakazabak, Wakazazamana, Kalmasa Kamwa, Sluggy, Kalmasa Yakamwa, Ashore, Amaru, Nairasha, Nawa, Nawa, Alahai, Alahaya, Shayatam, Kayam, Wash, Lapanya Raka, Thoradabna, Visa Iris, Wabasawa Pasta, Tabahalam, Mala'at, Panaham, Palawan, Wayakwasha, Shamka, Yahweh, Yabash, Yahweh, Bahala, Ayai, Hayata, Shamka, Yahweh, Labat, Al-One, Al-Kahah. This is Psalms 83 in the Hebrew. This is like in the English. Keep not thy promise, O Yahweh. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people. They have consulted against thy enemies. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. But they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites, of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gabal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asherus also is joined with them. They have opened the children of Lot, say Lot. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Zerah, as to Jabin, as the brook of Kison, which perished in Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Their was like a red, and like the all the princes of Zabah and of Zalmunna, who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of Yahweh in possession. Oh my power, make them like a wheel, as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burns a wood, and as the flame set the mountains on fire. So persecute them with thy tents, and make them afraid with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Yahweh. Let them be confounded in trouble forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yahweh, art the most high over all the earth. Sorry, choose the term. Shabbat, which means be seated. Right. Shalom, Israel, where the Israelites go to universal practical knowledge. Today is the Sabbath service. Most High's holy day. And it's not Sunday. It is the seventh day, Saturday. Christian church has lied to you, Israel. And today we're going to start off with the 7 verses in the Hebrew and then 7 verses in the English. And all it's going to be 49 verses. All right. All right, this is we're going to start off in Deuteronomy chapter 18. In the Hebrew. La'ah, Yahaya, Lakahanyam, Halayom, Slakim, Halayomah, Ha, Shabbat, Laya, Kalak, Wanakala, Ayin, Yasharella, Ashya, Yahweh, Wanakalath, Ya'akalwan, verse 2. Sluggy, we're starting at Deuteronomy 18, verse 7. Sluggy. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 7. Yabakwar, Yahweh. Sluggy. Washarath, Basham, Yahweh. Allah Yahweh. Kakakal, Salaki, Kakal, Akyawam, Akyawa. Halayim, Ha'imad, Ha'amadyam, Sham, Lapanya, Yahweh, verse 8. Kalak, Kakalach, Ya'akalwa, Labad, Mamakaryawa, I, Ha'abawath. It's verse 9. Kaya, Ata, Ba'a, All, Ha'aratazah, Shor, Yahweh, Allahayaka, Nathan, Laka, La'a, Talamad, La'ishwa, Katawaibath, Agawayam, Aham, verse 10. La'a, Yamataza, Baka, Ma'ay, Ma'aybayor, Wanwa, Wabathwa, Ba'ash, Qasam, Wasamyam, Maiwanan, Wamanakash, Sluggy, Wamanakash, Wamakashat, verse 11, Wakabar, Kabar, Washa'al, Awab, Wayada'ai, Wada'ayan, Sluggy, Wayada'aya, Wadarash, Oh, Hamathiyam, verse 12, Kaya, Tawaibath, Yahweh, Paul, Aisha, Alha, Wabagalad, Hatawaibath, Ha'alha, Yahweh, Allahayaka, Mawarash, Mawarayash, Awatam, Mapanyaka, verse 13, Tamayam, Tahaya, Ain, Yahweh, Allahayaka, verse 14. Kaya, Hagawayam, Hahal, Salaki, Ha'alha, Ashor, Atah, Yawarash, Awatam, all, Ma'anan, Slaki, Ma'ananiyam, Wa'al, Kwasamyam, Yeshamaywa, Wa'ata, La'a, Kan, Natan, Laka, Yahweh, Allahayaka, verse 15. What's like this? All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 7 in the Hebrew. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 7. Then shall he minister in the name of Yahweh, his power, as all his brethren, the Levites do, which stand there before Yahweh. They shall have like portions to eat, beside that which cometh of the sale of his patrimony. This is talking about the Levites. So the Levites had no inheritance, which they didn't have land, right? They were Yahweh was their inheritance. The Most High was their inheritance. So wherever they journeyed, they could go anywhere, and be taken care of because they were Yahweh's priests and the people's priests, Israel's priests, But anywhere they went, they were taken care of. They had room and board, what have you, in the sanctuary. And the people fed them. Verse 9. When thou art come into the land which Yahweh thy power giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations. Listen up, Israel, the so-called Black, Latino, and Native. And if you don't think you are of the children of Israel, you don't think you're the God's chosen people, the lost tribes, then you're going to be on the other side of the fence, because you got to listen up carefully. Read it one more time. Read it over. Verse 9. When thou art come into the land which Yahweh thy power giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. Now we have been taken far from our border, and we've been placed into captivity over here in America, aka Babylon. And we know this place is an abominable place. And we're doing the things of these other nations, like celebrating Christmas, celebrating Halloween, Thanksgiving, Easter, so on and so forth. Those are all pagan holidays. There are rituals. There's traditions with the heathens that they worship other gods, and they have the God's chosen people worshiping them as well, because we are destroyed for lack of knowledge. We have discontinued from our heritage. That's what happened to us, and they did it intentionally. They've been doing this. They've been trying to corrupt us from the beginning of time, because they knew we were God's chosen people. The Most High did not choose them; He put them aside. But verse 10, there shall not be found among you anyone that taketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, which all these nations do today. We have palm reading and psychics or what have you. They advertise it on TV or whatnot. Those are all witchcraft. That's all witchcraft. And there was a time when literally they used to have the heathens used to do sacrifices and put their kids, and they used to sacrifice their kids in fire. Now it could be figuratively or literally. Literally. And this is what they did. And now today, we do the same thing. We pretty much now figuratively, let's say the entertainment world. We know now that place is corrupt, especially Disney Channel and stuff. Why would you want your kids to go audition for a Disney when these kids are getting SA or what have you? You know what I'm saying? With these PDF files. That's putting knowing this, you've seen all the, you can, be in denial all you want, but you're doing it for that money. You willing to sacrifice your kids for that money, man. You know what I'm saying? You putting them through that fire. And whatever else you sacrifice them to, you know what I'm saying? That's wicked. That that is wicked. And that's what it means, right? Verse 11. And and also, like I said, you got the divinations. That's somebody that, try to see the future. Try to tell the future or what happened. You know what I'm saying? Basically, a witch. Observer of times, astrology and stuff like that. With the moon, stars, or what have you. We got those astrologers. An enchanter. You know what I'm saying? An enchanter trying to talk to other spirits or what have you. Chanting spirits and curses, whatever. Basically, a witch, and we call that a warlord. Verse 11, a charmer, or a consulter of familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. Pretty much it's all the same thing. A wizard, necromancer, somebody's trying to speak to the dead. Raise the dead or something like that. Familiar spirits, same thing. Consulter of familiar spirits, trying to talk to the dead. These other nations do all these things. Verse 12, for all that do these things are an abomination unto Yahweh. Said it's an abomination to Yahweh. So if you don't think if you don't think you Israel, you gotta listen to this, man, because he's gonna punish these people, man. If you don't think you Israel, you don't think you God's chosen people, you're gonna get punished right along with them, man. You're gonna wake up into everlasting contempt. You're gonna be into everlasting contempt in the next world to come. And the next world is gonna be greater than this one. It's gonna be just, it's gonna be upright, like this place here, straight corrupt. Verse 13. Thou shalt be perfect with Yahweh, thy power, thy Father, right? In the Christian church, they'll say you can't be perfect. He said be perfect. And how do you be perfect? You follow the law, statutes, commandments. That's how you be perfect. Don't sin. They say you can't sin. That's impossible. No, it's not impossible. Unless you out there, being a whoremonger, being a whore, doing fornicating and stuff like that. Eating unclean foods. That's how you sin. That's how you become a sinner. Stealing, robbing, unaliving, things like that, man. If you follow these law, statutes, and commandments, which are not grievous, you can be perfect. But the Christian church likes you, to destroy you even further, to keep you destroyed. Well, let's get some more. Verse 14. For these nations which thou shalt possess, there you go. We gonna possess. He said, these nations which we shall possess. In the world to come, we gonna possess them. Right? So if you so-called Black, Latino, and Native, you basically about to be a two-time loser, man. You lost in this world, and you're gonna lose in the next one. You're gonna be a base individual again. If you don't want to hearken to the law, statutes, and commandments, you don't want to listen to the Most High. You want to keep on, continue on being wicked. He gonna deal with you. Top of verse 14. For these nations which thou shalt possess, hearken unto observers of times. This is what they do because they're evil. They do it to this day. And to diviners. But as for thee, Yahweh thy power not suffered to do so. Suffered thee so to do. That's the end of verse 14. So we got to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments. We got to stop being stiff-necked people. Got to stop being a stubborn people, man. Because we all, this is why we're in captivity. This is why we're going through these atrocities that we go through out here in the streets, and in our homes, fighting amongst each other. They, destroyed us with divide and conquer as well. What? This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 15 in the Hebrew slide. All right. In the Hebrew, Nabaya, Makorabka, Sluggy, Makorabka, Ma'akyaka, Kamanya, Yakyam, Laka, Yahweh, Al-Hayuka, Al-Yawa, the Shemai one. Verse 16. Verse 16. Kakal, Ashar, Sha'alta, Ma'ayin, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Korah, Bayawam, Hakohal, La'amor, La'a, Asap, Lashamai, Af, Kawal, Yahweh, Alahaya, Wa'af, Ha'ash, Hagadalah, Haza'af, La'a, Awa'ah, Iwad, Wala'a, Amawath, Wayamar. It's like this, verse 17. Wayamar, Yahweh, Al-Yah, Hayatayah, Ashur, Deborah, verse 18. Nabayah, Aquayam, Laham, Makorah, Akyaham, Kamwaka, Wanathathya, Debaria, Bap Yawah, Wadabar, Al Yaham, Ath, Paul, Ashar, Atazawanyam, slave, Atazawan Wah, verse 19. Wahaya, Ha'ayash, Ashar, La'a, Yeshamai, Al, Debaria, Ashar, Yadara, Salai, Yadabar, Bashamya, Anakya, Adarash, Ma'aimwa, verse 20. Ak, Hanabaya, Slaki, Hanabaya, Ashor, Azayad, Ladabar, Debar, Bashamya, Ah, Ashor, La'a, Tazawayah, Slaki, Tazawayah, Yahweh. Delabar, Slaki, Ladabar, Wayashor, Adabar, Slaki, Yadabar, Basham, Alahayam, Akariam, Wamath, Hanabaya, Hahawa'ah, verse 21. Wakayah, Ta'amor, Balababka, Ayaka, Nadai, Ah, Hadabar, Ashar, La'a, Debarwa, Yahweh. It's the end of 21 in the Hebrew. All right. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 15. In the English, Yahweh, thy power will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me. Unto him ye shall hearken. Verse 16. According to all that thou desirest of Yahweh, thy power in Horeb, in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of Yahweh, my power, neither let me see this great fire anymore, that I die not. You know, the people were when they were in Horeb, you know, they heard the Most High. You know what I'm saying? They were terrified, you know, of his power, of his voice. They didn't want to see him, you know. So therefore, he's gonna bring a prophet like unto his brethren, which we're about to get into right now. But you know, he was terrified. So you know, just think when he comes back, you know, when he sent his son back, when this game over, man, you know what I'm saying? They were terrified when they saw, you know, just think what we gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Like if you ain't listening to these laws, statutes, and commandments, y'all gonna be, you know, when that sky crack open, all your heart's gonna fail. Men's heart's gonna fail. You know, they fell in there. You know what I'm saying? Because of this world. They can't take what's going on. You know? But verse 18. It's like verse 17. And Yahweh said unto me, they have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise, verse 18, I will raise up them. It's like I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth. And he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. This is you know, this is Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. You know, he's going to raise up a prophet from among his brethren, you know, because he was made just like his brethren. How was his brethren made? With a man and a woman, with Joseph and Mary. He wasn't created with no Holy Spirit coming over, you know, Mary and getting her pregnant, you know, like the Christian, the Catholic churches teach. You know what I'm saying? You know, he was made with Joseph and Mary. That's his parents. And it's throughout the Bible, you know, there's many scriptures where, you know, even the people around, they say, this is Joseph's son. You know, they knew who Joseph's son was. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't sitting there, oh, that's the Holy Spirit's son right there. You know, the Christian church had told us lies. But let's get more of this. So, and then, well, you know, once again, though, he said, he gonna speak unto them all that I shall command him. And you know what he says? That the law, Christ said out of his own mouth, these laws are not done away with until heaven and earth pass. You know what I'm saying? So they're still here to say, well, who you have saying that these laws are done away with? The Christian church, the Catholic church. It's because they want to be wicked, because they are wicked, and the truth is far from them. All right. Let's get more of this. Verse 19. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. Require it of him. You know, see, that's what he's going to want. You have to listen to what Christ had said. You know, listen, if you call yourself a so-called Christian, listen, go and see what Christ said and really be a Christian. You know what I'm saying? If he says that these laws are not done away with, go to Leviticus, you know what I'm saying, chapter 11, and look at the dietary law. It tells you not to eat pork. It tells you not to eat fish with no scales, and so on and so forth. There's a dietary law in there. And Christ told you that these laws are not done away with. Bottom line. You want to twist the scriptures. You know, you want to act like you can't. Your reading comprehension skills are low. You know what I'm saying? And just play dumb You know, it says in the scriptures in Proverbs 28 and 8, I believe, it says, if you don't listen to these laws, I'm paraphrasing, even your prayer shall be an abomination. If you turn your head from hearing the law, that's what it says. If you turn your head from hearing the law, even your prayer shall be an abomination. You know, that's what it says. Well, let me get it here. Let's make sure I'm correct with these scriptures. We're going to blurt them out. Let's see. Could be Proverbs 29 and 8. 28, Proverbs 28 and 9. He that turneth away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be an abomination. It's for all you Christians out there, man, praying to the Most High. Your prayers are an abomination to him. You out there eating that pork, you out there eating that shrimp, crab, lobster. Just think about it. You know, you can lie to yourself, oh, what God made clean, that calling out there, comment, you know, you twist Peter's scripture. You know, if you keep reading, you'll see that he was talking about a man. He wasn't talking about literal animals. That was a vision, but it was a parable. It's a metaphor about men. You know, but you want to twist them just because you want to, you know, feed your belly, you know what I'm saying, with that pork, what have you. You know, even your prayer shall be an abomination if you don't want to follow these laws, statutes, and commandments. Right? Okay, verse 20. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other powers, meaning other gods, even that prophet shall die. You know, who was that talking about? You know, Martin Luther King right there. You know, remember he said, white people, black people gonna hold hands. Most I didn't say that. You know what I'm saying? He's talking about the nations. You know, we ain't colorblind. We don't go, you know, because there's some people that look white, but they're Israel. But he was talking about, you know, the people that are enemies. You know what I'm saying? And what happened? Wow. You know, got done in. You know what I'm saying? Verse 21. And if thou say in thine heart, how shall we know the word which Yahweh hath not spoken? It's the end of 21. And even Martin Luther King out of his own mouth said he felt he led his people into a burning building, burning house, whatever. Right? He knew he was wrong. All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8. Chapter chapter 20, chapter 18, verse 22. In the Hebrew, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 22 in the Hebrew. Ashar, Yadara, Yadabar, Hanabaya, Basham, Yahweh, Wala'ah, Yahaya, Hadabar, Wala'ah, Yaba'ah, Hawa'ah, Hadabar, Ashar, La'ah, Nabarwa, Yahweh, Bazad, Dabarwa, Hanaba, it's like Hanabaya, La'a, Tagawar, Mamanwa. End of chapter 18. Now, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, verse 1 in the Hebrew. Kaya, Yakara, Yakarara, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Hagawa, it's like Hagawayam, Ashor, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Nathan, Laka, Aratazam, Wayarashtam, Wayashabta, Ba'ar Yaham, Wababath Yaham, verse 2. Shalawash, Aryam, Taba, sluggy, Taba, Y'all, sluggy, Taba, Dayal, Laka, Wadawak, Aratazaka, Ashor, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Nathan, Laka, Lawashata, verse 3. Takayan, Laka, Hadarak, Washalawat, Sluggy, Washala Shah, Gabawal, Aratazaka, Ashor, Yanaka, Yalaka, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Wahaya, Lanawas, Shama, Tall, Watazak, verse 4. Verse 4. Wazak, Debar, Haratazak, Ashar, Hanawas, Shama, Wakaya, Ashar, Yaka, Ra'aiwa, Mabalia, Da'if, Wahawa'a, La'a, Shana, Lawa, Matamal, Shalasham, verse 5. Washwa, it's like Washar, Yaba'a, Wa'aiwa, Bayar, Lakasap, sluggy, Lakasab, Itazayam, one of sluggy, one of the cut, Adwa, Bagaraya, sluggy, Bagarazan, Lakarath, Ha'itaza, one a show, Habarazal, Man, Ha'itaza, Wamataza, Ra'aywa, Wama, Hawa'a, Yana, sluggy, one a was, all, a kaf, the Irium, Ha'alha, Wakaya. This is verse 6. Pan Yawadap Gaal Adam Akarya Wahakawa Napash Walawa Ayam Mashapat. It's like Mashapat Mawath Kaya La'a Shana Awa'a Lawa Matamawa Shalash one. End of verse 6 in the Hebrew. All right. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 22. When a prophet speaketh in the name of Yahweh, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass presumptuously, thou shalt not be afraid of him. That's these pastors out here, they speak presumptuously. They think highly of themselves. They're men, they're lovers of themselves. Men will be lovers of themselves. You know what I'm saying? And that's what these pastors are today. You don't get no knowledge out in that churches, these churches down there. Never you did, not any day. All they was doing was teaching you false. You've got those pastors out there claiming to be Israel, but they're still doing what? Worshiping on Sunday. The Most High said the seventh day was the holy day, not Sunday, not the first day of the week, but the seventh day of the week. And he rested on the seventh day, which is known as Saturday, right? All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy 19, verse 1. When Yahweh thy power hath cut off the nations, whose land Yahweh thy power giveth thee, and thou succeedest them, and dwellest in their cities and in their houses. Verse 2. Thou shalt separate these 3 cities for thee in the midst of thy land, which Yahweh thy power giveth thee, to possess it. Thou shalt prepare, verse 3, thou shalt prepare thee a way and divide the coasts of thy land, which Yahweh thy power giveth thee to inherit. So he's saying if we go, he's going to give us land. He's going, we're going to go to war with some of these heathens, whatever, and we're going to take their land. And he's going to give us these lands, and he's giving us instructions on what to do. Verse 3, thou shalt prepare thee a way and divide the coasts of the land, which Yahweh thy power giveth thee to inherit, into 3 parts, that every slayer may flee thither. Verse 4. And this is the case of the slayer, which shall flee thither, that he may live. Whoso killeth his neighbor ignorantly, whom he hated not in time past. So this person, were able to flee to this place. If he unalived somebody, ignorantly, which, by mistake or what happened, did something stupid, and he killed somebody. He was able to go to the next city, and dwell there, right? This is the Most High's rules, I mean, here, you got, people that, unalive somebody by accident or what have you, they still, the white man about to throw them in the penitentiary. Some people, ended up being there for life, depending on what how the judge feel or what state you live in, They call it the United States, but certain states, they have different time, supposed to be the same laws, right? But they, they're not just people, especially if you are so-called, Black, Latino, or Native. You know, I can't stress this enough, but a man that did 72, no, it's like 27 years, just like mine, 27 years in Colorado because a white woman dreamt that he raped her. This is a real story. Back in the 80s, I believe it was. And the way he got exonerated was by the man that actually did it came forward. He felt sorry for that man. That was an upright man right there for doing that. I mean, he shouldn't have did what he did, first of all, but, he took accountability, right? Let's see. So verse 4, and this is the case of the slave. Oh, so lucky. You read that. Verse 5, as when a man goeth into the wood with his neighbor to hew wood, and his hand fetcheth a stroke with the axe to cut down the tree, and the head slippeth from the helm and lighteth upon the neighbor, that he die. He shall flee unto one of those cities and live. Here's an example right here. If a man, he goes in, the woods, chop trees, what have you, with his neighbor, and the axe or whatever, what I'm saying, the axe, and he's cutting down the tree, and it flies out of his hand, and it hits the man in the head, the other man in the head, and unalives him. He can go to another city, man, because there's going to be, somebody's going to want their revenge, whether it's the brother of the person that was unalive, or the father, even the mother or the sister, or what have you. Somebody going to want that blood, depending on how they feel, or what have you. Or they might just say, hey, man, it was a mistake. We understand. Sometimes things don't happen that way, right? It's just more of this understanding. Verse 6. Lest the avenger of the blood pursue the slaver. There you go. While his heart is hot, and overtake him, because the way is long, and slay him, whereas he was not worthy of death, inasmuch as he hated him not in time past. He never hated that man. It was an accident. And and it's funny how it says the slayer, the avenger that pursues the slayer while his heart is hot. You got that when you go purchase a firearm, right? You got the 10-day cool down period or something like that. This is where they get it from. You know what I'm saying? They get all this, just like the debt, after 7 years, your debt's, cleared, what have you. They get all this, but, the white man's corrupt. This system is all corrupt, Shalom, Yahweh, Shamar, Al-Athab, Hashem Yoshai, it's my rib. Shalom. Let's see here. It's lucky. So, all right. That's the end of verse 6. So now we're about to go to Deuteronomy chapter 19 in the Hebrew. Starting at verse 7. Kan Anakya Matazawaka La'amor Shalash Aryam Tabala Sluggy Tabada all sluggy Tabadayon Laka. Verse 8. Wa'on Yarak Ya. It's like Yarak Ya. Yahweh Alhayaka Ah Gabalka Kashor Nashabai La'abath Yaka Wanathan Laka Ah Hall Yarataz Shor Debor Latal. It's like Latath La'abath Yaka. Verse 9. Kaya Tashamor Ah Call Hamatazawah Haza'ath La'ashatah Ashor Anakya Matazawaka Hayawam La'ahaba Ath Yahweh Alhayaka Walalaka. But a rock Yahweh called Hayawam Yam Wayasapta Laka Iwad Shalash Aryam Hashalash Ha'aliha. Verse 10. Wala'a Yashaka Dam Nakya Bakara Aratazaka Ashar Yahweh Allahayaka Nathan Laka Nakala Wahaya Al Yaka Dam Yum. Verse 11. Wakaya Yahya Ayash Shana Lara'aya Lara'aywa Wa'ara Lawa Wakwam Al Yawa Wahakawa Napash Wamath Wanas All Hakath Ha'aryam Ha'al. Verse 12. Washalakwa Zakwamya Ayarwa Walakwakwa Athwa Masham Wanathan Athwa Bayad Gaal Hadam Wamath. Verse 13. La'ah Takwawas Ayanka Al Yawa Waba'arya Waba'arta Dam Hanakya Mayashar Slaki Mayasharala Watawab Laka. That's the end of 13 in the Hebrew. Sorry. All right. Let's see. All right. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, verse 7 in the English. Wherefore I command thee, saying, thou shalt separate thee 3 cities for thee. Verse 8, and if Yahweh thy power enlarge thy coasts, as he has sworn unto thy fathers, and give thee all the land which he promised to give unto thy fathers. Verse 9, if thou shalt keep all these commandments to do them, which I command thee this day, to love Yahweh thy God, and to walk ever in his ways, then shalt thou add 3 cities more for thee beside these 3. This is what he was going to do for Israel if we walk in his ways. Walking in his ways, keeping his laws, statutes, and commandments. But as you can see, we didn't do that because now we're over here in captivity, taken far from our borders, discontinued for our heritage. To the point to where, we have, our own people, they don't want to, they come up and fight against us when we tell them that we are the God's chosen people. They don't want to accept it. They want to say stuff like, all people are God's chosen people. What it says, if you don't listen to the law, statutes, and commandments, he gonna punish you. You know what I'm saying? We are the only people getting punished, blatantly, which is obviously, right? Obvious. You can't sit there and be like, oh, these Chinese people getting punished over there in China. No, they don't fit these curses. They didn't say that the Chinese were going to be scattered amongst every other nations and be destroyed and be base. They're not base. They're over here above us, making billions of dollars off of us. The Asians are, right? These curses fit you, so-called Black, Latino, and Native. All right. Let's see. Verse 10. That innocent blood be not shed in thy land. Verse 10. That innocent blood be not shed in thy land, which Yahweh thy power giveth thee for an inheritance, and so blood be upon thee. Verse 11. But if any man hate his neighbor, and lie in wait for him, and rise up against him, and smite him mortally, that he die, and fleeth into one of these cities. Verse 12. Then the elders of his city shall send and fetch him thence, and deliver him into the hand of the avenger of blood, that he may die. Now, if you're doing some grimy stuff, being a murderer, evil murderer, hiding because you jealous of somebody, like we be doing in the hood and stuff like that. You just hate, you hide, you're going to ambush this person to kill him for his money, or his car, or what have you, unalive him, or her, back then you would get dealt with, man. The elders, the leaders, the priests, the elders of the city will fetch you, will get you, and take you to the avenger, that you may be slave. That was just back then, So now, verse 13, thine eye shall not pity him, but thou shalt put away the guilt of innocent blood from Israel. He unalived somebody that was innocent, that it may go well with thee. Verse 14. Yeah, that was it. All right. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, verse 14. 14 in the Hebrew. It's lucky. Yeah. Yeah, 14 in the Hebrew. La'ah. That's a God. Gabarol. Ra'aika. Ashar. Gabalwa. Wa'ashan. Sluggy. Ra'ashan yam. Banakalaka. Ashar. Danakal. Ba'arataza. Asharah. Yahweh. Allahayaka. Nathan. Laka. Larashah. Larashah. La'ah. That's lucky. Verse 15. La'ah. Yakwawam. Aid. Akkad. Ba'ayash. Lakal. Iwan. Walakal. Kata'ah. Makal. Kata. Ashar. Yakata. Ya. Shanya. Ayam. All. Haya. Shalasha. Ayam. Yakawam. The ball. Verse 16. Kaya. Yakawam. Aid. Kwamas. Wa'ayash. La'aina. Sluggy. La'aina wa. Wa. Sarah. Verse 17. Wa'imad wa. Shanya. Ha'anashya. Shor. Laham. Hawayab. Lapanya. Yahweh. Lapanya. Hakahanya. Wahashapat yam. Ashor. Yahweh. Wayawam yam. Haham. Sluggy. Haham. Verse 18. Verse 18. What a rashwa. Hashapat yam. Hayasad. Sluggy. Hayata. Wahahan. Sluggy. Wahana. Aid. Wakal. Shakar. Ha'aid. Shakar. Aina. Wa'akyam. 19. Wa'aishyatam. Lawa. Ka'ashor. Zamam. La'aishwath. La'akyawa. Wa'arda. Harai, Makwarabka, Makwarabka. Verse 20. Verse 20. Wahana Sha'ar, Sluggy. Wahana Sha'ar, Yum. Yashamai, Wayara, Sluggy. Wayara, Sluggy. Wayara, Wala, Asapwa, Sluggy. Yasapwa, La Aishwa, Iwad, Kadabar, Harai, Hazah, Bakwarabka. Verse that's end of 20. Right. All right. This is the book of all right. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, verse 14. In the English, thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's land, which they of old time have set in thine inheritance, which thou shalt inherit in the land that Yahweh thy power giveth thee to possess it. You know, the Edomites, so-called white men, you know, they're known for moving somebody's land. You know, look what they did to the so-called natives, right? Look at what they did to so-called Mexicans, which is Iscar, so-called natives, Gad. You know, moved them far from their borders, put them on reservations, did things like that. You know, Most High said, you know, Israel, we can't move our neighbors, remove thy neighbors from their landmark. Verse 15, one witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity or for any sin, in any sin that he sinned. At the mouth of two witnesses or at the mouth of three witnesses shall the matter be established. Verse 16, if a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him, that which is wrong. Verse 17, both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before Yahweh, before the priests and the judges, which shall be in those days. Verse 18, and the judges shall make diligent inquisition, and behold, if the witnesses be a false witness and have testified false against his brother, then, verse 19, then shall ye do unto him as he had thought to have done unto his brother. So shalt thou put the evil away from among you. So they do diligent inquisition, right? You know, the judges, which are the elders, the priests, what have you, you know, and they're gonna judge justly, you know, righteously. Unlike, you know, this system here, so-called white men, devil that the Bible speak of. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna grill that person, you know, interrogate and see and get the truth. You know, verse 20. And those which remain shall hear and fear, and shall in henceforth commit no more any such evil among you. Right. All right, that was the end of chapter 20, verse 20. All right. This is it's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, verse 21 in the Hebrew. Wala'ah, takawas, ayanka, napash, banapash, ayan, ba'ayan, shun, bashan, yad, ba'ad, ragal, baragal. That was the end of Deuteronomy chapter 19. And this is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 1. Kaya, tataza, lamalaka ma, it's like it. Lamalaka ma, ayaka, it's like it. Ayabaka, wara'at, it's like it. Wara'a yata, sawas, waraka, ain, ra, mamka, la'ah, tayara, maham, kaya, yahawa, alhayka, ainka, hama'alka, ma'arataza, matazarium. Verse 2. Wahayam, sluggy. Wahayam, kakarab come. All. Hamalakama, wanagash, hakahan, wadabar, all. Ha'ain. Verse 3. Wa'amar, alham, Shamai, Yasharala, Atam, Korabia, Hayawam, Lamalakama, Slaki, Lamalakama, Al, Ayabyakam, all, Yarak, Nababkam, all, Tayarak, Sluggy. Tayarawa, Wa'al, Takabaz, Wa'al, Ta'ar Tazawa, Mapanya, Sluggy. Mapanya, verse 4. Kaya, Yahawa, Alahayakam, Hahalak, I'm come, Lahala, Lakam, Ein, Azab Lahawasha, Ein, Slugging. Lahawasha Yai. I've come. Verse 5. What the bar was. Hashata Wayam. All. Ha'ayam. Slugging. Ha'ain. La'amar. Mayah. Ha'ayash. Ashar. Banah. Mayah. Qadash. Wala'ah. Qanat. Kanakwa. Yalak. Wayashab. Labayatwa. Han. Yamawath. Bamalakama. Sluggy. Bamalakama. Wa'ayash. Akar. Yakanakam. Sluggy. Yakanakamwa. Verse 6. Wamaya. Ha'ayash. Shar. Nasai. Natai. Karam. Wala'ah. Kalalwa. Yalak. Wayashah. Labayat. Pan. Yamawath. Bamalakama. Sluggy. Bamalakama. Wa'ayash. Akar. Yakalalan. Sluggy. Yakalalan. Wa. Verse 7. Wamaya. Hayayash. Ashar. Arash. Asha. Wala'ah. Lakwaya. Sluggy. Lakoka. Yalak. Wayashab. Labayatwa. Pan. Yamawath. Mamalakama. Wa'ayash. Akar. Yakwakna. That was the end of verse 7. All right. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21 in the English. And thine eye shall not pity, but life shall go for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Well, that was the end of Deuteronomy chapter 19. We're at Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 1. When thou goest out to battle against thine enemies, and seest horses and chariots, and a people more than that, be not afraid of them, for Yahweh thy power is with thee, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Verse 2. And it shall be, when ye are come nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people. Verse 3. And say unto them, Hear, O Israel, ye approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble, neither be ye terrified because of them. You know, the Most High was telling them, don't be scared of these people, when you go into battle, because they got more horses, more chariots, more people, more warriors, what have you. He told us not to fear them because he is with us. He don't care about numbers. Okay. Let's go. Verse 4. It's like verse 3. It shall say unto them, no, it's like verse 4. For Yahweh, your power is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies, to save you. Verse 5. And the officer shall speak unto the people, saying, what man is there that hath built a new house and hath not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. So, a man dedicating his house, that's pretty much, he built a house and he dedicated his house, he consecrated it, he made it holy, made sacrifices to the Most High so the Most High can dwell in that house. If he built a house and he went to war and he had done that, he was able to go back to that house and do just that. Verse 6. And what man is he that hath planted a vineyard and hath not yet eaten of it? Let him also go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man eat of it. That's the end of verse 6 in Hebrew, and it's like in the English. All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verse 7 in the Hebrew. Wamayah. Ha'ayash. Ashar. Arash. Asha. Wala'ah. Laka. Yalak. Yalak. Wayashah. Wayashah. I'm all right. Oh no, yeah, seven.
Okay. Labana Yahwa, Pan, Yamawam, Yamawaf, Bamalakama, Waayash, Kar, Yaquatna, verse 8. Waya Sakwa, Hashatarium, Ladabar, Al, Ha'ain, Wa'amarwa, Maya, Haya, Yash, Haya, Ka, Hayara, Yarak, Lahabab, Yalak, Wayasha, Labayakwa, Wala'a, Yamas, Af, Labab, Yawa, Kalababwa, verse 9. Waya, Wanadaka, Yadwa, Bagarazan, Lakara, Atazar, Wana Shaw, Habarazal, Man, Tazar, Wamatazar, Ra'aiwa, Wama, Hawa, Yana was, Akat. We got to 13. Ayam, Aryam, Oha, Wakaya, 6. Fun, Yarada, Ga, Adam.
Starting at 7:13. Yeah. 20. Yeah, chapter 20. Yeah. Chapter 20, 7 to 13. Okay, I'm not 20. Chapter 27. Come. Yeah, right here. So, yeah. So 7:27 to 13.
La, Asha, Target, La Dabar, Ha'aim, Wapa, Quadwa, Sharia, Tazaba Awa, Bara Ash, Aim, Stin, Kaya, Aquara, All, Ayar, La Ma, Lakma, Al Yaha, Wada Al Yaha, Lasha La Yum, 11. Ya Shalawam, Ta Ainka, Wapa Katha, Laka, Wahaya, Kal, Ha'aim, Hanama Taza, Aha, Yawa, Laka, La Mas, Wa'ai, Bad Waka, verse 12. Wa'am, La'a, Shoyam, Ainka, Wa'ashata, Ainka, Malakama, Watazara, Al Yaha, verse 13 and last one.
Comes.
Wana na Yahweh la ahayaka ala hayaka bayaka wahakayata aka zakawara lapya karat.
All right. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verse 7 in the English. And what man is there that hath betrothed a wife and hath not taken her? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man take her. You know, but the Most High was just, he was just back then. No. Oh, okay. Come on. Oh yeah, you know, I'm just, you know, I was just saying, you know, it's just, you know, if he, you know, just married a rib, you know what I'm saying, he was able to go back to her, you know, because he hasn't, you know, gone up in her, you know, laid with her into her, right? Yeah, you know, so he was able to, you know, he wasn't able to, you know, go to the battle, and he went back home, you know, lay with his wife. It was good.
Yeah. All right, verse 8, and the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, what man is there that is fearful and faithful hearted? Let him go and return unto his house, lest his brethren heart faint as well as his heart.
Yeah, it's like, because you know that's the spirit, right? You know what I'm saying? You have evil spirit, you know, you're around evil people, you know what I'm saying? You bound to get that evil spirit. So these men, they were faint-hearted, you know what I'm saying? That spirit, they can be talking about, we can lose this battle. Now that spirit will jump in you. Right. You're right, man. And start getting faint-hearted, start getting scared.
Right.
You know, that's the spirit.
Verse 9, and it shall be when the officer have made an end of speaking unto the people, that they shall make captains of the armies to lead the people. Verse 10, then thou comest nigh unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. Verse 11, and it shall be, if it make the answer of peace and upon and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee.
So we are going there, going to battle, you know what I'm saying, and you know, defeat those people, and they're gonna serve us. They're gonna be our servants, you know.
Verse 12, and if it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it. Verse 13, and when the Lord thy God hath delivered it into thine hand, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword.
Just like, so, you know, I think we talked about this before. What about the women? Like, I know we can't, you know, because they were, you know, heathen women. I know we can't go up in them, so they're gonna just be servants, right?
Right.
Be servants.
Service and handmaids.
Service and hand. So that concludes the Sabbath service. In Israel, let's say, Imagine.
Men of Israel, we want to courtesy to the teacher, men of Israel, Allah Shabbat, Imagine. Barak, Yahweh Hashem Yahshua, Barakatah.
How about you, Ralph Shah?
Matah, men of Israel, we want to courtesy salute to the sisters out there that may be watching online. Men of Israel, Allah Shabbat, Imagine. Barak, Yahweh Hashem Yahshua, Matah, class is Smith.